We're going to look at read aloud. The main things with read aloud, you need to read accurately and you need to read fluently. And we'll talk about how to do those things. In the test, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. This is quite small. I'm not expecting you to read this now. So you'll see a screen like this. You've got your instructions, you've got a timer, and then you have the text that you have to read aloud. Okay, so here we've got current status beginning in 40 seconds. So this is a countdown beginning in 40, 39, 38, 37. When it gets to 0 or 1, you need to begin speaking. You've got 3 seconds to begin. And there's not a bell, there's not a voice that says begin speaking. You need to be watching this. You need to be aware of when the mic opens, and you've got 3 seconds to start speaking. Usually you get 40 seconds. Sometimes it might be 35 if it's a slightly shorter text. Okay, so it's going to look like this, and you've got a specific time to use. So step 1, the 40 seconds here, the practice, so the recording's not beginning for 40 seconds. You've got 40 seconds to practice. So you want to read through the text and use your voice in the practice time. So it's not being recorded, but when you use your voice, it helps you to understand the text better. If you just read in your mind, then when you start recording and you read aloud, you'll suddenly realize, oh, I understand that now. I get what it means. Or I thought it was this, but no. So use your voice the first time. It helps you to understand. Step 1. Step 2, once you start recording, you want to use an even pace and don't go too fast. So there's lots of advice out there saying read really quickly. That helps you with fluency. Absolutely not. It does not help you. In fact, it reduces your pronunciation as well. Now, I just caught a glimpse of myself as I was speaking, and I noticed I was using my hands. So I know that some of you in your native language, you use your hands when you speak. If you do, do it in the test. That's going to help you to express the meaning. So don't worry about it. No one else is going to see you. Everyone in that room is looking at their computer doing their test. So you do whatever you need to do. Use your body if that helps you to feel more fluent, more comfortable. Okay, so the target, even pace. Not too fast, not too slow. And there's quite a range of native speakers. So some speakers are quite slow and deliberate. Other speakers speak quite quickly. So there's quite a range that's normal. You just want to be somewhere in that range. Okay, but definitely don't aim to go quickly. It's no help at all. In fact, it's a hindrance. It will reduce your score. Okay. So while you're reading, you need to do your best with words you don't know. Maybe it's a completely new word. Maybe it's a word you've seen, but you don't know how to say. Just do your best, because if you feel I've made a mistake with that and you repeat it and maybe you still make a mistake and you try again, now you've got 3 mistakes. At least if you just said the word the first time, you'd have 1 mistake, or maybe it would be close enough, clear enough, not to be counted as a mistake. So if you make a mistake, keep going, and you need to practice that, because I think it's natural to stop and correct. Don't do that. Keep going. Okay, so in general, grammar words are not stressed. So articles, the, a, an, we don't usually stress them. Prepositions, of, it, behind, in, on, we don't usually stress them. Very occasionally we do. If we do, it's deliberate. It's because we're conveying a particular meaning. But for you guys, the general rule is do not stress all of those grammar words, the, for, in, but, of. Don't stress them. And the other thing is, if you're a little bit advanced, aim to link the words within phrases, and we'll look at what that means in a moment. Okay, so are you ready? I'm going to get you to do one, then we'll listen to a native speaker, then I'll get you to do it again. But I want you to just get that idea of you've got 40 seconds, practice, read aloud, and then 40 seconds, the mic will open. You need to be speaking then. Okay, so all I want you to do now is to practice that and also practice that fluency. Just keep going. Okay, so there's your text, 40 seconds to practice and then begin reading aloud. I'm not going to tell you when to start reading aloud. You need to watch the clock, watch the timer. Off you go. Okay, so the big questions. Did you read accurately? Did you read fluently? Okay, and let's look at the scoring. Okay, so part of your score is for content. So you read accurately. You didn't drop any words, omit words. You didn't drop words. You didn't replace words, and you didn't insert any words. And also, if there was an S, you said the S. If there was an ED, you said the ED. So you're not you're not dropping them, you're not adding them, and you're not replacing them. Okay, if you made some errors, you might get a 4, 3, 2, or 1 is many errors, and you might get a partial score. If you made one mistake, maybe you'll get 4.5, 4.7, for example. Okay, that's content, but there are 2 other categories. What are those other categories? Do you know? So one of them is fluency, and smooth rhythm is important here. So native-like, so you don't have to sound like you're a native speaker, but your fluency is like a native speaker. So you're not native, but native-like. You sound quite similar. So smooth rhythm, smooth phrasing. So rhythm is kind of like the song of your voice. Does it sound English? And I know that if I listen to French speakers or Russian speakers or German speakers or Japanese speakers, the rhythm is different. I don't understand the words, but I think, that person they sound like a Japanese speaker. That person sounds like a Vietnamese speaker. That person sounds like they're speaking Mandarin. And so there's that rhythm. You can kind of recognize a language. So what's the rhythm of English? And phrasing, that's where you pause, where you take a breath between phrases. No hesitations, no repetitions. So hesitation, hesitations, repetitions, you make a mistake and you say it again. No false starts. So you don't start speaking, make a mistake and go back and start again. Okay, so it says no hesitations, but 1 or 2 ums, it's not a big deal really. Native speaker will occasionally do that. Not so much when they're reading a text. Possible. Okay, but definitely not too many ums and ahs. Okay, and then you can have a score anywhere between 0 and 5 or 1 and 5. And then there's another category. What's that one? Okay, pronunciation, and you can see 5 marks for each. So a perfect score. You've read the content accurately. You've got that native speaker sound. And then pronunciation. Again, you don't need to sound like me, but your vowels, your consonants, your sounds need to be clear. You need to be easily understood. That I might be able to say, that person sounds like their native language is Dutch. They sound like they're from the Netherlands, but I understand quite easily. So there could be an accent, but it's not a barrier to understanding. And then word and sentence stress. Is your word stress generally correct? Your sentence stress, are you stressing the right words? And that's what I mentioned before about grammar words. So you don't want to stress grammar words. We don't usually stress grammar words. We stress nouns are more likely, sometimes adjectives. So it's content words most likely to be stressed. Okay, let's have a listen to a sample answer. And before we do that, so what I've done here, I've put in these lines where maybe someone would pause. Okay, so if there's a comma, you must pause. So a comma, you must pause. Full stop, you must pause. Often the pause after a full stop is a longer pause. Don't think about it. Don't overthink it. But the speaker we're about to listen to, I'm not sure if he does it here, but often the pause here is quite long, longer than I would pause. But we're both native speakers. Okay, but you must pause at a comma. You must pause at a full stop. Now, there are other places you might pause. This is a common one. Before the word and, we'll often pause. Okay, so if I just read through part of it, analysts were impressed by the improvement in margins reported across all regions, apart from the United Kingdom. Okay, so these words, the grammar words, by the, in, across, apart from, or apart from the, these are words probably we wouldn't stress. I might stress apart. So there's a bit of flexibility there. I might pause there. I might not. I might read straight through. Analysts were impressed by the improvement in margins reported across all regions. I have to pause here because there's a comma. So what I've done is I'm grouping the words, and I might have my group going all the way here, but if I want to pause, if I need to breathe, for example, or if I want to stress something, I might pause here. Analysts were impressed by the improvement in margins reported across all regions. So there's some flexibility, but you must pause at a comma, full stop. In general, don't stress the grammar words. So let's listen and see, where does he stress, where does he stop?
Analysts were impressed by the improvement in margins reported across all regions apart from the United Kingdom, and said that this reflected a clear effort to improve profitability across the business. Although the turnaround is still in its early stages and the valuation looks full, given the challenge of turning around such a large and complex business, this is certainly an impressive start.
Okay, so he wasn't stressing the grammar words. A word like and, he didn't say and, he said such a large and complex. I didn't even hear the D. Quite normal to drop the D. Such a large and complex business. His pause was quite long after a full stop. That's okay. He's a native speaker. It's a natural way of doing it. There's a fair bit of variation. He was stressing these words, the words in bold. Okay, so I'm going to get you to do this same one again. What I want you to do is grab your phone and find a recording app. So you need to be recording yourself all the time. You record yourself when you practice, you listen back, and then you evaluate your performance. What did you do well? What do you need to work on? Okay, are you reading fluently? When you're reading, am I hearing the S? Am I hearing the ED? So analysts were impressed by the improvement in margins reported. So we're hearing the S. They're not stressed, but they're there. So if I read naturally, analysts were impressed by the improvement in margins reported across all regions. Okay, so you can hear my S's, they're there. You can hear my EDs, they're there. Are you reading them or are you dropping them? If you're dropping them, you're not reading the content accurately. You're going to lose marks for content. So really practice those words. In fact, you might want to do a printout, underline or bold, highlight these word endings. Make sure that you get the S's and the EDs, because that's where many of you are going to lose marks. Okay, so you should have your recording app now. If you haven't got one, you can download them for free. There are lots of them around. Any of them are fine. All you want to do is record yourself, play it back, record yourself, play it back. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to do that in a moment. I'm going to give you another 40 seconds to read aloud with your voice and then record yourself on your app. Now, one of the things I want you to practice is pause at the comma, pause at the full stop, stress the meaning words, okay, and those word endings, the S's and the EDs, are they there? Okay, so they're the things that most of you will need to work on. Okay, so practice time, 40 seconds, off you go, and then straight into read aloud. Okay. So what you need to do now is listen back and analyze. So how was your content? Did you read each of the words that were there? Did you include the S's and the EDs? Have you got the word endings right? Okay, fluency, stress patterns. Did you stress the meaning words in the sentence? So I could say analysts, impressed, improvement, margins, reported, regions. And you have an idea of what it means. They're the keywords. The grammar words were, by the, in, from the, they're not so important. We wouldn't stress those. So that goes to your fluency mark. Did you speak at a reasonable speed? Did it sound like English? So that is all part of your fluency mark, and your pronunciation. Not that you needed to sound like me, but could a native speaker understand you fairly easily? So 15 points in total. How many points would you give yourself, and where would you take points off, and why? So you need to analyze your own recording and be realistic. What are you doing well? Because you are doing some things well, and some things probably need some improvement. What's good? What needs work? And so now you know where to focus. Okay, good job.